SingleDad fixed her car for free. She signed a deal worth millions in his name. The last light in the garage flickered as Ethan Ross wiped grease from his hands and glanced at the clock, 9:17 p.m. The floor was quiet, the tools all hung in their proper places. Outside, the rain hadn't let up since noon, tapping against the tin roof like a lullaby. In the corner, a little pink raincoat lay folded on a chair. Maisie, his 6-year-old daughter, had fallen asleep in the tiny office while drawing a picture of their dog Max, who they'd lost the year before. Ethan leaned into the door frame and looked at her. She was still clutching a crayon in one hand, her head resting on a sketchbook. A soft smile touched his lips. This was their life now, just the two of them. And he was doing his best, even if best meant patching tires for half price and eating canned soup more nights than he'd like to admit. A loud clunk echoed from outside. Ethan stepped into the rain expecting maybe a delivery or someone needing directions. Instead, he saw a sleek black Jaguar, steam rising from the hood hazards blinking. A woman stepped out, heels clicking on wet pavement, her coat soaked through mascara smudge, just enough to suggest she hadn't had an easy day. Car trouble, he called, already reaching for his tool bag. She looked at him, half defensive, half desperate. I'm supposed to be in Chicago. An hour ago, Ethan gave a slow, calm nod. Let's pop the hood and see what we've got. She hesitated. I don't have time for a long fix, and I don't carry cash. I didn't ask for money, Ethan said, already walking around the front of the car. She blinked at that. 10 minutes later, with hands steady and heart quiet, Ethan did what he always did. He fixed broken things. And by the time the engine purred again, something in the air had shifted. Thank you, she said softly. What's your name, Ethan? Harper, she said, almost like a secret. Then almost reluctantly, you didn't ask who I was. Ethan shrugged. Didn't seem like it mattered. She looked at him, really looked, and said, that might be the rarest thing I've ever heard. And then she drove off into the night, the taillights vanishing into the mist. Ethan didn't think twice about it, but Harper Vale did. The glass doors of Vale Innovation slid open with a whisper as Harper stepped inside. Her heels clicked with precision down the polished hallway, hair still damp from last night's rain, but her eyes sharper than ever. The executives were already seated in the boardroom. Suits, screens, spreadsheets, a battalion of numbers and pressure. Nathan Brigg, the CFO, was already speaking when she entered. Without a signed partnership on the solar grid expansion, our forecast is at risk of falling short by Q4. We need someone credible with blue-collar appeal and a spotless record. Harper calmly set her leather folder on the table and said, I've found him. The room fell quiet. Who? Nathan asked, blinking. Wait, did I miss a pitch? Harper tapped her tablet. The screen behind them flickered to life. A photo of Ethan holding a wrench in one hand and resting the other on a classic Ford pickup filled the wall. Meet Ethan Ross, independent mechanic, single father, runs his own one-bay shop in Morrow's Bend. Confused murmurs rippled around the table. Harper, another board member, said cautiously with respect, we were expecting a PhD, an energy consultant, not a guy with no LinkedIn profile. I'm not interested in LinkedIn, Harper replied smoothly. I'm interested in integrity. And I met it last night in a garage lit by a single bulb and a man who refused money just to help a stranger in the rain. She paused. He didn't Google me, didn't ask about PR, didn't sell a sob story. He just fixed what was broken. Nathan leaned forward. Harper, our investors need a face, someone with credibility in this next phase. The press will ask questions. Good, she said. Let them. And when they do, well, tell the truth that we built this phase of the company on real people, not just polished resumes. Someone chuckled under their breath. You're staking your name on a guy who probably still writes invoices by hand. She turned slowly. No, Harper said. I'm giving him a name, a stake, a signature on this deal in his name, because I trust him more than I trust any of us to represent what this brand could be. Silence, the kind that buzzed through wires and wound around hearts. Finally, Nathan rubbed the bridge of his nose. And if he says no, Harper smiled faintly. Then we ask again, politely. That night, Harper drafted the papers. The deal with Northgrid's Solar Millions and clean energy investment would go forward. And the lead name on the contract, Ethan Ross. The man who fixed her car without ever knowing she could change his life. The morning sun cast soft beams through the garage's front windows as Ethan bent under the hood of a dusty old sedan. The rhythmic clang of tools and faint hum of country radio made the garage feel alive, held together not by wealth but by work habit and necessity. From the corner office, a voice called out sleepily, "Daddy, are we getting pancakes today?" Ethan grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "If I finish this alternator by 10, it's a deal." Maisie, still in pajamas, rubbed her eyes and shuffled back into the office where her coloring book waited. Just as Ethan reached for a ratchet, the bell above the garage door jingled. He turned, expecting a customer. But it was her. Same heels, same coat. But today, Harper Vale didn't look lost in the rain. She looked determined. Ethan froze for half a second, caught off guard. "Didn't think I'd see you again." She smiled softly. "Neither did I." In her hand was a sleek envelope, thick and cream-colored, with gold-embossed edges. She held it out. Ethan didn't take it. "I don't want a reward," he said gently. "This isn't a reward," Harper replied. "It's an opportunity." He raised an eyebrow. "I signed a deal," she said, stepping closer. "A real one, multi-million-dollar green energy partnership. And I signed it in your name." Now he did take a step back. What he asked, confused, maybe a little defensive. "Why would you do that?" "Because I needed someone real," she said. "Someone the world would believe in. Someone I could believe in. And I chose you." Ethan exhaled, stunned. Harper opened the envelope and placed the contract on the workbench. Pages thick, but the first line was clear. Partnership Agreement, Vale Innovations X. Ross Energy Solutions. "You're asking me to lie," Ethan said quietly, staring at the name. "I'm asking you to step into something real. You fix broken things, Ethan. Now help me fix a broken system." From the office, Maisie called out again, "Dad, the purple crayon's gone." Harper looked toward the sound, then back at him. "You don't have to decide now," she said. "But if you want a future that stretches farther than this garage, not just for you, but for her, this is the door." She set down a pen beside the papers and added softly, "You were kind when no one was watching. Now the world is watching." And with that, she turned and left, heels clicking against concrete like punctuation marks. Ethan stood still. Beside him on a grease-stained workbench sat a decision that could change everything. The contract sat on the workbench like it didn't belong there, too crisp, too clean, too rich for a place that smelled like oil and old coffee. Ethan had meant to move it, but he kept walking past it, around it, like it might vanish if he ignored it long enough. But it didn't, and neither did Maisie. "Daddy, what's a partnership?" Ethan looked up from under the hood of a pickup, startled. Maisie was standing by the workbench, her pink hoodie covered in flour from this morning's pancake mess. She was holding the contract with both hands like it might break if she breathed too hard. "Where'd you find that bug?" he asked gently. "It was just here. It says Ross in big letters, like your name." She squinted. "But it also says a lot of words I don't know." He wiped his hands on a rag and crouched beside her. "Partnership means when two people work together," he said. "They trust each other. They try to make something better." Maisie tilted her head. "Like me and you when we made pancakes." Ethan smiled. "Exactly like that." She studied the page again. "Is this going to make us rich?" He chuckled. "I don't know. Maybe. But money isn't everything." Maisie leaned in and whispered, "Can we still live here if we're rich?" That stopped him. Because here meant this greasy garage and that lumpy couch in the office she called her bed and late-night mac and cheese with a side of broken dreams. It also meant mornings filled with laughter and coloring books. Love even when it was tired. "Well, always live where there's love, kiddo," Ethan said, pulling her into a hug. She nodded, then said, "If you do a partnership, do I get to help?" He looked down at her bright eyes. "You already do." She beamed. Later that night, when the shop was quiet and Maisie had fallen asleep beside Max, the stuffed dog, Ethan sat at the workbench. He picked up the pen Harper had left. He didn't sign yet, but he didn't push the contract away either, because maybe, just maybe, the biggest repairs weren't to cars. They were to the life he thought he'd always have. Ethan sat alone in the garage long after the town had gone quiet. The rain had stopped, but its scent still hung in the air, fresh electric, like something waiting. The contract lay open again, its pages now smudged faintly with oil. Ethan's name was typed in clean, bold font, Ross Energy Solutions, a name he hadn't even known existed until Harper wrote it into being. He stared at the blank line where his signature belonged, Ethan James Ross, a name that had once belonged to a husband, then a father. Now what? For most of his life, he'd known how to fix things. Starters, carburetors, rusted bolts. You turn the wrench, it gives. Or it doesn't. But people weren't like engines. They hid what was broken. Harper had done that too. She hadn't come to his shop just for a repair. She'd come with something unraveling inside her. And he'd sensed it, the quiet panic behind her composed voice, the way her hands trembled slightly as he handed her back the keys. And still he hadn't asked. Because sometimes the best kind of help is the one that doesn't demand answers. He glanced toward the office. Inside, Maisie was asleep, curled up in her sleeping bag, Max tucked under her arm. One sock always off. He thought of her face when she asked, "Do I get to help?" She already had, and maybe, just maybe, he owed it to her to walk through the door Harper had opened. Not just for money, not even for pride, but for the chance to be more than what life had reduced him to. He took the pen, signed his name, and when he did, something shifted in his chest like a knot he didn't know he'd been carrying finally loosened. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. No fireworks, no applause, just quiet and hope, and the soft sound of rain returning, not a storm this time, but something gentler. The phone buzzed once, then again. Harper Vale sat in the back of a black sedan, its tinted windows muting the city's noise. She had just stepped out of a meeting that drained her all numbers, projections, and doubts. Her assistant was talking softly on the phone in the front seat, giving her space. Harper glanced down. A new message. Ethan Ross. I signed it, that was all. No fanfare, no questions, no negotiation, just 3 words. Harper's fingers tightened around the phone. For a moment, she said nothing, just stared at those words like they meant more than any boardroom speech ever could. And they did, because she'd bet her name, her seat at the table, and part of her heart on a man who didn't know her world but knew how to show up when it counted. She dialed him immediately. The line rang once, twice. Then Ethan, he answered, voice steady. You signed, she said barely above a whisper. You left a pen. She laughed, not the poised boardroom kind, but real and unscripted. You always this easy to hire, I don't know, he said. First time anyone ever offered me something that felt like more than a paycheck. Silence stretched between them, not awkward, but weighty. Honest. Then Harper said, you're going to get media requests, background checks. They'll dig up everything. Let them, Ethan replied. I've got nothing to hide. Just tell me what this really means. She breathed in. It means your name is on a deal that will bring clean energy to thousands of homes. It means you'll sit at a table most people like you never even get to knock on. It means you're not invisible anymore, Ethan. She heard him exhale. And then softer, almost like he was speaking more to himself, he said, maybe it's time I stop living like I'm waiting to disappear. Harper blinked hard. They'll have a driver pick you up tomorrow, she said. Bring Maisie if she wants. It's your launch too. Ethan hesitated. Then she'll want to dress up. Harper smiled. So will I. Back in her penthouse that night, Harper stood by the window with a glass of wine and stared out over the skyline. For the first time in months, the city lights didn't make her feel alone. Somewhere across the river, a man who once fixed her car for free had just stepped into a future she never expected to share. And it was only the beginning. Ethan tugged at the collar of the stiff dress shirt he borrowed from his neighbor, one size too tight, and clearly not built for someone who lived in grease-stained denim. Next to him, Maisie twirled in a light blue dress with sparkles that caught the morning sun like magic. Her hair was neatly brushed, and she clutched a worn stuffed dog in one hand. "You sure I don't look like a penguin?" Ethan whispered, crouching next to her. Maisie nodded solemnly. "A handsome penguin." The elevator chimed open. They stepped into the Vale Innovations press hall, a glass-paneled space glowing with light and cameras. Media crews buzzed like bees around a hive, all centered on a sleek podium, with two names on the backdrop: Vale Innovations, Ross Energy Solutions. Ethan froze for a breath. Harper was already on stage giving directions to a flustered PR manager. But the second she saw Ethan and Maisie walk in, she paused and smiled like the room didn't matter. She came down the steps herself. "You made it," she said, adjusting her blazer. "And you look like I lost a bet with a department store," Ethan offered. She laughed, "like someone the world's going to remember." Maisie blinked up at Harper. "Do people really want to take pictures of Daddy?" Harper knelt to her level. "A lot of people talk big, but your daddy, he did big. That's even better." Flashes started as the cameras noticed them. Ethan instinctively stepped back, but Harper gently placed a hand on his arm. "Just stand beside me," she said. "Say what's true, that's all." He nodded. A few minutes later, the room hushed as Harper took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice crisp but warm, "today isn't just about solar panels or quarterly forecasts. It's about possibility, about the people we've overlooked." She turned slightly toward Ethan. "Last week I broke down on the side of the road. I met a man who didn't know who I was, didn't ask, and didn't care. He helped me because he could, because it was right." Harper paused. "And today he's not just part of this deal, he is the deal. Please welcome the new face of Ross Energy, Ethan Ross." The applause was immediate, loud, real. Ethan stepped forward. His hands were shaking, but Maisie gave him a thumbs up from the front row, and Harper gave him a soft nod. So he spoke. "I'm not used to rooms like this," he said into the mic, voice gravelly. "But I know how to fix things. Not just engines. Sometimes people too, if you're patient." He glanced at Harper. "I don't have a fancy degree, just calluses. A daughter I love more than life, and a shot I never expected." He took a breath. "But I won't waste it." And for the first time in years, as the cameras flashed, and Maisie clapped louder than anyone, Ethan didn't feel small. He felt seen. The press conference was barely over when Ethan's phone started vibrating like it had caught fire. Text after text, missed calls, emails from addresses he didn't recognize, and some he wished he hadn't. Back in the car, Maisie was asleep in the back seat, her stuffed dog tucked under her arm. Harper had offered to send a driver, but Ethan insisted on driving them back himself. He needed the quiet, the space, the illusion of control. But even as the city blurred past his window, the noise followed its whim. "You're trending." That was Harper's first message. Then a link, a video clip of his speech already on its way to going viral. SingleDad becomes face of billion-dollar deal after fixing CEO's car. The comments were relentless. "Finally someone real. Ethan Ross is the kind of man we need more of." "Wait, is he single?" He chuckled at that last one, but it didn't quiet the storm inside him. By the time they got home, he had 4 voicemails from his old boss, 2 interview requests, and a message from someone claiming to be his cousin. The kitchen felt smaller tonight. The fridge buzzed too loudly, and the contract copies Harper had emailed him sat unopened on the counter. He paced. He stared at Maisie's drawing on the fridge, her and him holding hands beneath a sun with a smiley face. "Me in Daddy's garage," it read. And for a second, he missed that life. The quiet one. The hard but simple one. He hadn't asked for this. He'd just done what felt right. But now people wanted something from him. His story, his time, his face on their talk show, their campaign, their product. The doorbell rang. He opened it to find Harper holding coffee and looking almost nervous. I figured, she said, handing him a cup. You might need something strong. Ethan stared at her. Did I just break my own life, Harper? Harper walked in without asking, placed her coffee on the counter and turned to him. You revealed it, she said. And now people see you. That's not breaking. That's brave. He shook his head. I don't want to be a symbol. I just want to be a dad who did the right thing. She stepped closer. Then be that. Let the noise be noise. The rest, we'll figure it out. Outside, the world kept scrolling, kept speculating. But inside Ethan's kitchen, beneath buzzing lights and old magnets, something steadier held its ground. Two people learning how to carry the weight of unexpected change together. The headlines looked flattering, but the boardroom didn't feel it. Harper stood at the head of the wan glass table facing 12 people in tailored suits and wary eyes. Behind her, a screen displayed the latest numbers engagement through the roof shares in green, but the expressions across the table stayed stiff. Let me get this straight, said Carl Donovan, silver-haired and sharp-eyed. You gave co-signing power of a multi-million-dollar initiative to a man whose business address is a garage behind a bakery. Harper didn't flinch. I gave credit where it was due. Another board member, Marcia Klein, tapped her stylus. He has no background in sustainability, no corporate training, no degree. He has something better, Harper said calmly. He has trust, integrity, a daughter who adores him, and a community that sees themselves in him. Marcia narrowed her eyes. Or maybe he just makes a good story. People love a fairy tale. Harper leaned forward. Then maybe it's time someone real got to write one. A silence settled. Behind the numbers, behind the spin, they were worried. Not about Ethan failing, but about Harper being right. Because if someone like him could belong at their table, what did that say about the table? Across town, Ethan faced his own fire. He'd agreed to one interview, local news, just 10 minutes, and by the end, his words had been chopped. His garage made to look like a junkyard, and the headline read, "Billion-dollar woman's charity case mechanic with a kid." When he saw it, his stomach dropped. Maisie was drawing a house with 3 chimneys and a swing set. Is that your show, Daddy? Ethan turned it off. Later, his old friend and former co-worker, Miguel, showed up at the garage with a 6-pack and a grim expression. You're all over TV, Miguel said, and not just in a good way. I didn't ask for any of this, Ethan muttered. But you signed your name, Miguel said softly. That means you do want something, even if you're scared to admit it. Ethan looked down. I didn't want people to think I was using her. Then stop letting them write your story for you. That night, Harper called. Rough day, she asked. Let's call it educational, Ethan said. There was a pause. Then she said, you still want this? I want a better life for my daughter, Ethan replied. I want to build something that matters, but not if I have to be someone I'm not. Harper's voice softened. Then let's show them who you really are. Ethan took a deep breath. Okay, he said, let's begin again. The conference room smelled like espresso and anxiety. Ethan stood by the whiteboard, sleeves rolled up, grease still faintly staining his hands. Around the table sat engineers, investors, and Vale executives who had built empires out of polished decks and buzzwords. But today they listened. Because Ethan wasn't pitching profit, he was talking people. I know. I'm not like any of you, he began, tapping the marker against the board. But I know what it's like when your lights flicker every time it rains. I know what it's like to patch a heater with duct tape. This plan, this whole Ross Energy Solutions thing, it has to mean something to folks like me. Or it's just more noise. He stepped back, revealing his design, a community-first solar rollout focused not on luxury eco-towers, but on single-family homes, neighborhood garages, and local schools. Clean energy, not for the elite, but for the overlooked. One skeptical executive raised her brow. How do you expect to finance a grassroots phase first? That's backward scaling. Ethan nodded. I know. But if we prove it works in places no one invests in, then no one can say it won't work anywhere. Harper watched from the sidearms crossed, proud but silent. This was his moment, and he wasn't performing. He was leading. Later, after the room cleared out and only Harper remained, she approached the board. Do you realize, she said quietly, you just got a dozen industry leaders to scrap half their assumptions in under an hour? I didn't mean to, Ethan said, rubbing the back of his neck. That's exactly why it worked, she replied. He looked at her, really looked, and said, this idea, I only know how to build it if I don't have to pretend, if I can still be a dad first. Harper nodded slowly. Then we build it your way. They stood in silence watching the blueprint on the board. It wasn't sleek, it wasn't branded. It had smudges, crossed out lines, and a section drawn in Maisie's crayon when she visited earlier. But it was real, and it was a start. The old neighborhood hadn't seen fresh paint in years. Fences leaned like tired men. Mailboxes sagged. Kids played soccer in the dust between broken sidewalks. But when Ethan stepped out of the car holding Maisie's hand, his eyes didn't see decay. He saw home, not his exactly, but the kind of place where someone like him might have grown up, where hot water was a luxury and dreams waited behind padlocked doors. This was Riverview Heights, the pilot site for the Ross Energy rollout. He looked at Harper, who stood beside a cluster of engineers with clipboards and tablet screens. Her tailored suit didn't match the setting, but her calm, alert eyes did. Are they ready for this? Ethan asked. Harper nodded. More than we are. By noon, the first panels were being installed not on a corporate building or luxury condo, but on Ms. Avery's roof, an elderly retired teacher who'd once taught 4 generations of Riverview kids how to read. She cried when Ethan knocked and explained. You mean this is free? She asked, hands trembling. Free, he said. No catch, just clean energy and a thank you for everything you have already given. A few houses down, a single mom named Tanya signed the paperwork with her baby balanced on one hip. You're that guy on TV, she said. I'm the guy who nearly broke his thumb fixing a toaster yesterday, Ethan joked. She smiled. You're real. That's what people need. Over the next few days, word spread. Old neighbors came out just to watch the workers offering lemonade sharing stories. Kids ran around pretending to be solar engineers with cardboard tools. And every night, Ethan and Maisie stayed late, helping, laughing, listening. Even Maisie started calling it Daddy's neighborhood. But the real change came one evening when the lights went out across the city in a rolling blackout. Everywhere except Riverview Heights, the panels held, the houses glowed, and news crews arrived within hours. The next morning, headlines screamed, SingleDad Solar Vision powers community through blackout. Ross Energy delivers where big utility fails. From garage to grid, Ethan Ross changes the game. But Ethan wasn't watching the news. He was sitting with Maisie on the front steps of Miss Avery's house, sharing a slice of her famous banana bread. He looked around at the street, now lit from house to house, not just with electricity, but with dignity. This is what I meant, he whispered. Harper, standing nearby, heard him. And this is just the beginning, she replied. The invitation came in gold foil, heavy formal, intimidating. An exclusive dinner for venture capitalists, tech moguls, and elite partners of Vale Industries. Harper wanted Ethan there, not as a guest, as the face of the new energy movement. Ethan wore the best he had, a simple blazer, polished shoes, and a quiet resolve. He didn't blend in. He wasn't meant to. Whispers followed him through the marble hall. That's the mechanic. He fixed a car and got a company. Must be nice being someone's charity case. But Ethan didn't flinch. When Harper introduced him on stage, she didn't read from a script. She told the story of a man who chose kindness without cameras, who gave without agenda, and who now stood on that stage because of character, not polish. Then Ethan spoke. No pitch deck, no statistics, just heart. He talked about single mothers and old veterans in Riverview Heights who cried when the lights stayed on. About his daughter Maisie, who thought solar meant sunlight that makes people smile. And about how real change doesn't start in boardrooms, it starts in broken neighborhoods with people who still believe in fixing what's theirs. There was silence after he finished. Then applause, not thunderous, but genuine. A few investors nodded, one even stood. Afterward, people approached Harper quietly, offering backing, not because of projections, but because of Ethan's conviction. As they left, Harper looked at him and smiled. "You didn't change for the room," she said. Ethan shook his head. "The room changed for me. Just when the momentum feels unstoppable, the cracks begin to show." A leaked memo from inside Vale Industries circulates online. It claims the solar project is a PR stunt, that Ethan Ross was handpicked for his narrative appeal, and that Riverview Heights is non-scalable charity optics. It goes viral. Suddenly, Ethan's story, once a symbol of hope, is being weaponized against him. The same tabloids that once praised him now question his intelligence. Headlines read, "Mechanic" or "Mascot, would you trust a single dad with 20 million Maisie? Hears kids whisper at school. She asks Ethan, 'Daddy, did you lie?'" His heart breaks. At Vale headquarters, Harper is furious. She demands an internal investigation. But more than that, she's heartbroken that the very system she believed they could change is now trying to protect itself by discrediting Ethan. "Maybe I was naive," Ethan says quietly. "Maybe I don't belong at your table." But Harper, voice trembling, replies, "You belong. They're just afraid of what that means." That night, Ethan returns to the garage, alone. The blueprint on the wall, the crayon Maisie used to color the sun, stares back at him. But something keeps him from tearing it down. He's hurt, but not done, because this isn't about one man fixing a car. It's about changing what power looks like. The headlines kept trying to bury him, but the people wouldn't let them. One by one, the residents of Riverview Heights began to speak. First came a video from Miss Avery, the retired teacher whose roof was the first to shine. "For Ethan, I lit candles to read. Now I teach neighborhood kids on my porch at night." Then Tanya, the single mom, uploaded a photo of her baby asleep in a crib under the soft hum of solar-powered air conditioning. "He didn't pitch us. He helped us. For free." Soon more came forward. Clips, messages, hashtags. Hashtag Ross is real began trending. Ethan watched it unfold from his garage, stunned. Maisie sat beside him, swinging her legs, beaming. "They remember what you did," she said, "even if the internet forgets." At Vale, Harper was fighting battles of her own. She stood before the board with printouts, photos, letters, testimonials. "This is not a campaign," she said. "This is impact." A silent vote was called. The project would continue with full funding and Ethan Ross officially named as community co-director. Back in Riverview, something even more important happened. A town hall held under open skies turned into a celebration. People gathered not just to support Ethan, but to say this is ours too. Children sang songs. Local mechanics volunteered to train in solar maintenance. A mural was painted across a brick wall, Ethan's hands holding a son with Maisie on his shoulders. Ethan didn't speak much that night. He didn't need to. When Tanya handed him the microphone, he simply said, "I thought I was just fixing things. But maybe we were building something new all along." It wasn't a boardroom, it wasn't a showroom. It was a classroom. And this time Ethan got to design it. Vale Industries, in collaboration with community leaders, invited Ethan to help create something permanent, a solar innovation lab and tech learning space built in Riverview Heights, named not after a corporation, but after a man who never planned to change the world, only to help someone stranded on the side of the road. They called it the Ross Legacy Room. Ethan stood at the center of the construction site as the first bricks were laid. Maisie drew a sun on the blueprint again, just like before. Harper walked up behind him. You do realize your daughter's going to think you're a superhero now. Ethan chuckled, but his voice was thick. She's the reason I never stopped. I just didn't want her to grow up thinking kindness was small. In the weeks that followed, volunteers poured in, students, engineers, retirees, even skeptics. What was once a warehouse became a space full of light learning and laughter. Children from the neighborhood came in daily to tinker with solar kits and learn coding. Teens learned how to install panels. Ethan taught a hands-on workshop called Fix It Like a Dad. And on the opening day, Harper gave a quiet speech. The Ross Legacy Room isn't named for prestige. It's named for persistence, for showing up when no one's watching, for the power of fixing what's broken, not just machines, but faith and futures. When Ethan stepped in that first day tool belt slung over his shoulder, Maisie by his side, he paused under the sign bearing his name. He looked at it for a long moment, then whispered to his daughter, "We built this, you and me." Maisie took his hand and whispered back, "Let's build more." And so they would. Years later, the Ross Legacy Room had become more than a lab. It was a landmark not just in Riverview Heights, but across the country. Other cities built their own versions. Schools taught energy and empathy side by side. And Ethan, he never took a corporate title. He still wore flannel, still fixed broken microwaves when asked. On a quiet spring afternoon, a new kid wandered into the Legacy Room, nervous, holding a broken drone in his hands. Ethan knelt down just as he had for years and smiled. "What happened?" The boy shrugged. "I think I broke it trying to make it fly higher." Ethan nodded, taking the drone gently. "Trying to go higher is never a bad thing. Let's fix it together." Outside the window, Maisie, now a teen, taught a group of kids how to solder wires. Her laughter echoed through the hall. Her t-shirt read, "Hope is rechargeable." And from the back of the room, Harper watched, arms crossed, heart full, as everything they once dreamed quietly came to life. No spotlights, no grand speeches, just a man, a room, a daughter, and a world forever changed by one act of kindness on the side of the road.